I've been laid off before, but I've been laid off before under, I would say, more normal economic conditions. We have incredible, dramatic changes, volatile changes happening in terms of tariffs and taxes, and that introduces a whole level of economic uncertainty. I would really like to be doing things more of my time that people legit just value.
Welcome to the Pivoting Wolf. Open conversations with interesting people from varying backgrounds across several different countries around the world. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Pivoting Wolf. Today, I'm here talking with my good friend and colleague, Aaron, and he's going to be telling us about a few pivots that you've gone through, right? So I will save all the juicy bits for you, Aaron. You want to start by just telling me and the listeners a little bit about yourself
Sure,
and
sure.
what's been going on?
So I I think the TLDR, if you will, um, is that I've been more or less either a contractor or directly working for the U.S. federal government for in and out of like about the better part of like 2 decades. And I was most recently working for the U.S. National Archives, and then as a result of the let's just say the administration's changes beginning in January of this year, I was let go along with several thousand other people in mid-February. And this is on the heels of you know my my role as an instructional designer being kind of diminished in the marketplace in general. And between this is layoff number 6 for me in my career, and now I'm basically gearing up to become a barber, and I'm completely tapping out of professional office, work life career forever.
I hear you, and I I commend you. And 6 layoffs is a lot, and yeah, um,
One layoff is a lot.
yeah. Well, one way off, but yeah, you know what? You're right. Thanks for bringing some clarity
One lay
around that.
If you've never been laid off, all right, the first layoff is you don't know what's happening. You feel like you're in it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you feel, especially if you're, in the U.S., generally you feel some sense of shame,
Mm-hmm.
like it's your own responsibility
Mm-hmm.
to be fully employed. And even when you're laid off, which is clearly matters beyond your control, right?
Yeah, I
All
know. I've
right.
been there. I've
We've
felt
all
that.
been there. We've all been there, right?
Yeah,
But the first time is the hardest.
yeah.
And
But
I
the sixth
empathize the
time's got
most.
to be something completely else. I
Well, it is.
mean,
It is. But
yeah.
because like after this happens like twice, you start building like you start recognizing like I'm going to be depressed for a little bit, and then I'm going to get over it because that's just part of the cycle of things. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot like having been through therapy for something before. Like you still remember the steps of the grieving process.
Mm-hmm.
They don't change from event to event. You change. You know.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And but I think that what intrigues me though, which is why I really wanted to talk to you, is I know people who've been laid off several times. I'm not going
Yeah.
to say I've met anybody who's been laid off 6 times, but you live long enough and it's going to happen more than once,
That's
in
all I'm
my
saying.
opinion. A, you live long enough, and B, you work in corporate America because especially if you live in an employment at will state, which I don't know if there might be people out there that don't know what that means. Because I know some of my European friends, they're like, what the heck's that? As a matter of fact, I was just having a conversation the other night with a friend of mine here, and I was telling him that I had just, gotten a new contract with a client, and he didn't understand that I'm self-employed. I landed a
Yeah.
contract for my company, and he asked me, well, how many contracts are you allowed to have at one time? And I just almost like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm self-employed, I do what I want. But
Yeah, but in
then I
different nations, it
remembered,
doesn't work that way.
right,
Yeah.
they have contracts here. So, and I'm like, what's that? And that was so foreign to me. I'm like, nobody's given us a contract. We're lucky if the key still works in the door the next day, every day that we come to work. Because I mean, I've had people who've worked at places where they literally, I will never forget this. Was years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a I don't even remember the name. It's some pizza place that was in Atlanta, and they didn't last very long. It wasn't one of the big three. It wasn't Domino's, Papa
Mm-hmm.
John's, Pizza. It wasn't none of that. This dude showed up to work, and literally the dang windows and doors were up. They boarded it up overnight in the middle of the night after
Wow.
everybody went home. I was so stunned. I was like, what? Talk about no notice, no nothing, like nobody was there for them. And that's happened, and I've actually witnessed myself in corporate situations where I think this one was the most heartbreaking. It was right around Christmas time. There was a coworker who was now admittedly she wasn't doing well. I mean, she was bananas, okay? And we
Mm-hmm.
honestly we didn't like her because she wasn't doing her work and she was nuts. However, we knew that she was having a mental health crisis. Her son had unalived himself, and she was not doing well at all, and it was spilling out all over work. And instead of having some humility and just trying to help the situation, because she was a contractor, they didn't do anything. I don't even know if they even contacted the agency to talk about what was happening. So it was Christmas. So we had this Christmas lunch,
Mm-hmm.
Christmas office party pizza. And they literally sat there and we were having all kinds of cheers and eating pizza and, passing out. Some dude had gone on some skiing trip to Switzerland and had come back and brought back a whole bunch of chocolates and goodies and was giving it out to everybody. And everybody was like having laughter and la la la, it's Friday, it's pizza, 2 weeks before Christmas, whatever. Do you know that they let her sit there and partake of all of that and have all the pizza and all the chocolates and this and that? And literally, within 20 minutes of us disbanding from that meeting, they literally just walked up to her desk like gangster and just offed her out like that. Just get your stuff, time to go, you're out,
Mm-hmm.
you're fired. I was just like, what in the slaughterhouse is going on over here? That is the most horrible thing I've ever seen happen. That's the worst way I've ever seen somebody be treated. But I didn't mean to get all down that rabbit hole, but I'm just saying, um, you're right. It makes you feel, you feel like, oh, it's my fault, or it's something that you should have done differently. Could you have stroked their ego a little bit harder? Could you have something? Yeah, and it's BS. But back to my point. When you said you're done with that, in the way that you speak such power to that, really just fills my little soul. And I wanted to talk to you more about, like, how did you come to the place where you decided to go to barber school? And I mean, I could say, well, for obvious reasons, yes, I could see why you want to leave corporate behind after 6 layoffs and everything. But I'm just wanting to know, because you
Well,
seem,
it's
I know
deeper
you're
than
a
that.
creative.
It's
I
deeper than that.
know. I know, and that's
It's
what I
deeper
want to
than
get
that.
at. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, so one, I think you have to recognize the moment that we are living in. All right, this I've been laid off before, but I've been laid off before under, I would say, more normal economic conditions. All right, normal market conditions, a more predictable market. All right, job
Right.
market, not even just the economy. And when you've been laid off a number of times as I have, and of course, along with that, as many job changes as I've had, both voluntary and involuntary,
Right.
all right, I am well aware of the many ways I can permutate my career experiences into qualifying me for another new role. Okay. But I
Right.
wasn't in my 50s a decade ago when this was still happening and we were dealing with similar administration changes and similar economic challenges and market uncertainties. All right. It was because even then we had people who were interested. One, we weren't having, I would say, a lot of corporate mindset that is being influenced by the promise of AI.
Yeah.
Not that it's delivering any of those goods yet, but there's reasons why people pick and choose early bets and invest. And I understand that from having witnessed corporate and government and nonprofit sectors alike all doing their adoption trends, and now more and more as these organizations have outsourced a lot of their internal talent to external software as a service, right? More and more of these tools now are adopting AI features because they believe their customers want it, all right? Whether or not they do, different story, right?
Right.
Right. But those trends are legit happening, and
Yeah.
we need to acknowledge that all of that has some fuzzy impact. All right, we don't necessarily know, but the evidence of the impact is there, and that's enough to know there's something going on. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but that's happening at the same time as we have incredible, dramatic changes, volatile changes happening in terms of tariffs and taxes, and that introduces a whole level of economic uncertainty, and to the point where it's just like nobody's doing a lot of real hiring. A lot of people are posting positions that are internal, open to internal, vacancies that for whatever reasons they have to post, out in the open. And much like the right to work laws, help circumvent all the checks and balances and due process that's supposed to go into place to make sure that you're doing fair hiring practices.
Yeah,
Right
I'm
to work
familiar.
allows you to be like, you and I have an agreement as employer and employee that you're only as employed as I want you to be, and I can only I can only be counted on to call you my employee as long as you want to be my employee.
Right.
That's supposedly the deal in the right to work states. Okay. What that means is they can hire and fire with impunity, and they can let go of you just because they don't like the way you smell.
Oh, I
Is what
know.
that means.
I,
You
I,
know,
I
but
lived in Georgia for 33
there's no
years.
legal protection for smelling bad. And you would have to demonstrate that it was for some legally covered prejudice, right? Which is very difficult and time consuming and resource intensive for someone who's being let go to do. So
Oh,
most
I
people
know.
don't,
Yeah.
right? So, like all of these conditions are happening. We have federal employees being let go by the thousands with no due process, like basically in bulk. At the same time that like you're seeing support services that are federally funded being stripped away for the people who are now out of work. you know,
I know it's
This is not the same writing that was on the wall in any other time that I've been laid off. So it calls to question, as a learning professional, let alone a tech professional, unless I really want to be into AI, which I am not, because I'm kind of, my whole shtick has been about facts and data, right? That's been my entire career, has been about, coming up with really good questions and in finding ways to surveil what learning is happening in ways that we can demonstrate evidence of the impact of, the learning intervention and the tools that we are, support systems around what we put into place in the workplace to make sure that people are doing the right things you want them to do. So, like doing a lot of change management. Okay, we are
you know
dealing now in a post-fact, post-truth kind of economy. I can't deal with that. So all of that is to say, and this is how I'm going to answer your question. I recognized as early as, a good year ago, how underutilized I was, even as a full time employee.
yeah.
Just the in terms of what people were at, how my time was actually being used in ways that I felt like were actually, like, making use of my skills or my know how, right? Versus, either completely having nothing to do or constantly me developing, basically identifying my own work, Um, and I just realized, I'm just like, I would really like to be doing things more of my time that people legit just value. And they're not
Right.
valuing learning and they're not valuing instruction. And certainly in the last year, seeing how drastically knowledge has been devalued, I was more of like, I need to get into something that is practical, that I make value or I provide value that people tangibly recognize and are willing to give me cash for. And that part's also becoming important because this market of me having to constantly demonstrate and prove that I'm doing something of value. Please pay me what you actually owe me for the work I've already done for you, right? Is getting really, really old.
Yeah, Aaron, I got to tell you, everything that you've described, if I may, if I
Yeah,
may, I mean, dude, let's be honest, because we have similar backgrounds, with learning and development.
sure.
I've been in it for. Don't let me count the decades. Don't let me count the too long. It's a long, long time. I'm still in it. Um, it's like hard to put that down, But I've seen that writing on the wall. I've seen that writing on the wall. Honestly, I want to say almost not long after I got into the field. Because
Yeah.
I'm going to go old school here and let's just, I'm just going to go off on a little rant here. The pioneers of our industry, I mean, that all the heyday of ISD and the true pioneers, Mager and Pipe and yeah, just all the people that made everything instructional design what it was. It goes back well over 100 years, the origin of it. When I was coming into it, you know, Gagne and Bloom and one of my professors at UGA was really deep into it. He's written books about it. And, I got to meet some of these guys when they were much older in their age and their
Mm-hmm.
years. And I feel like when I entered the field, I feel like I missed the party, to be honest with you, because I remember feeling so pissed off when I
Mm-hmm.
got to the corporate setting. I had all this formal training and background and education and learned and in some cases learned directly from some of the guys who were writing the books out there who were part of the backbone of it. And then when you get to the real world, as they say, and they're just like you said, they don't value. I've been feeling, I would say, and this sounds like such a downer, and I don't mean to sound like a downer, but hey, we're just being honest today. I've felt not very valued for probably the majority of my career, to be honest with you. I mean, gosh, I can't believe I just said that out loud, but I mean, it's freaking true, you know? But you do what you got to do, you pay the bills. I still enjoy the work, and I still, maybe foolishly, have a little bit of fight left in me. Not much, but a little bit, enough to keep me getting up in the morning and keep doing what I do. But when you talk about doing something that people value, that really resonates. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit more too about the creative side of yourself, because I think we also share like the music interests. And, you know, I remember going through, I called it my career midlife crisis. I want to say this has probably been a good 14 years ago. I remember, and I was literally just about to get my master's degree, and I was like, I was deep into everything, and I was just feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, what have I done? I've gone and I've invested so many years in getting really good at what I do, and like, I just want to be a graphic designer. Or I want to go design websites, or I just want to do anything but this. I was having a meltdown moment. It was right around 2011. I was really feeling completely lost and just totally disaffected. Um, I didn't even want to finish my graduate program. I was out at the end of my, I was literally like one little thing away from getting my master's degree, and I just was ready to just walk away. I had a friend who happened to work at the same place and on the same floor, a few cubes over from me, and she grabbed another buddy, and they came and ganged up on me in my cube one day, and they're like, "Look, you're gonna finish this." Like, no matter what, you're gonna finish this. Even if you never do it again, you're gonna finish this. You know, I owe my sanity to them. You know, I did manage to get through, obviously, but I had this yearning in me to do something more creative that fed my soul, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, I just was coaching someone earlier today. Um, I've been doing business coaching with her, and I've been coaching her to start a new business. And I think she came to the realization this morning she's not sure she wants that. She's not sure she wants to do that anymore. And
So I went through a few iterations before figuring out what I wanted to actually do as a
yeah,
barber,
let's talk
to be
about
a
that.
barber.
Yeah.
So, uh, right around November of last year when the election happened, that's when I started getting really real. Like I've been trying to figure out what my post instructional design retirement job kind of thing would be,
Mm-hmm.
because can't imagine I'd never stop working. Um, I have obviously, like as you said, like music is a big love of mine. It's something that around the same time frame, around 14 years ago, I just started realizing that I had basically taken myself away from that,
Mm-hmm.
and there was really no reason why I shouldn't be doing that. Would as a at least something that I love and enjoy and do, and so I pursued on the music side any opportunity. I would have like dad jams with dads around the guys that were in my neighborhood when I was living out in Philly, and every couple of weeks we'd pitch in for like studio time somewhere, and we just like bring our instruments and just jam for a few hours. Sometimes we'd record, sometimes we wouldn't, but I had plans up until I left Philly to record an album in 24 in Philly. I had like kind of had a set of different groups of musicians I had played with, and I had a kind of a project plan in my head. I had a budget; it was all set out, and then of course life changes things, and then of course everything else
Yeah, to
changes.
say the
So
least, right? To say the very
so
least. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I moved to Chicago. I was going through a divorce. I and then as I'm doing all that, then I'm getting laid off from the feds because of DOGE, and
Dang.
I'm just dealing with all the stuff. And at the time, around November, I was just like, okay, I want to let's just do what I love, and I love smoking meat, and I love cooking for people. Let's do a food truck. Let's start simple with getting into food business. Let's just do a food truck, see how that goes. Food trucks can be reasonable, or a food cart, can be reasonable, tow behind, whatever.
Hmm.
Like, in terms of the startup cost for that, I figured I'm like, this could do. And I started doing a bunch of business model canvases around it, and I had been talking with people for a number of years as just exploratory, about doing a barbecue type of joint. And I knew some things about, I knew I had some assumptions I was working with in terms of, like, knowing that proteins are super duper expensive. And, so if you're going to do a barbecue, you got to factor that in. And then I started factoring in, well, we might be dealing with different import prices for beef and stuff. And that's going to drive my prices
Yeah.
up in terms of just what I can supply, let alone can I even get the cut of meat? Because, like, there's some weeks where there's just no brisket. There's such a huge Jewish and Ethiopian population in Chicago that they basically, like, take over the brisket. Fucking, I'm not even
Dang.
kidding I'm not even joking when I say that. That's what I'm hearing from the suppliers. And
Wow.
yeah,
We
yeah,
have
no,
a
no.
we
I
have a
mean, no,
brisket problem, ladies and gentlemen.
I researched this. So, like, and that's no knock on that. I at least am part of one of those groups. And I definitely fuck with the other, so it's totally
Yeah.
fine. But,
Dang. I've
like,
never heard of
but
a
yeah.
brisket shortage, but
Well, I
yeah.
mean, there's just a run on brisket, especially around Passover, right? Like,
For real.
for real, the hot holidays, like, it can be a real problem. And I mean, like, just a thing and so I thought about, well, man, I'll just do authentic Philly cheesesteaks, because you can't find an authentic Philly cheesesteak in Chicago. It's really, like, there's one place I know I can get one.
Mm,
And even them, it's hard. They got to source everything from Philly in order to do it. So it's like I started looking through that. And then I started really thinking through not just the business model, but the actual execution of the business, which is a very
mm,
different look. What business model canvas will give you strategy, right? But it
right.
doesn't get you operational.
Right.
You are making assumptions when you start using some of those tools. But until you actually start trying to do, like, a timeline of how like a pie chart of just basically, like, from start all the way around to the end, right? Here's my day. How many chunks of my day do I have? Right?
Right.
And when you start doing a food truck business, you start thinking about how you need to have a commercial kitchen. You need to clean everything before you go out the day. You need to clean everything when you come back from the day. You need to store everything. You need to source everything. And then you start thinking about the fact that, like, I don't have a team of people. I don't have a company of people,
Right.
right? I'm trying to do business just me.
Man, I'm
And
feeling
then,
tired just listening to all this,
right,
man. I feel
right.
like I need to go
Once
take a nap.
once I started doing that work, that's when I realized that doing any kind of food based business for me was unrealistic, because I have older kids, but I enjoy spending time with my kids. I
Yeah.
have friends and I disc golf, and I enjoy my free time and my rec time. All right. I need know at this point in my life that I need to have some of that time in order to just be healthy. Now, I'm not even talking about being happy, right?
Right.
I need to be happy to be healthy enough to participate in capitalism.
Right.
So that gauges a lot of how I do my calculation now. And when I started thinking about it, what are the jobs that would have almost no, like, once you acquire the tools, right, you got all the resources you need, right?
Right.
There's not a lot, not even in the trades is there a lot like that. You still need concrete, you still need wood, you still
Right.
need whatever, right? But a barber, you show up with the tools, you can literally do that job anywhere and legally you're allowed to. And like at that point, it's just like, okay, there are very few restrictions on my key resources. My customers are literally anybody and almost everybody's used to already still paying in cash.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You really
And
make some good
when
points. Yeah, yeah.
and well, here's the kicker. I go to see my guy like every 2 weeks. I'm a little bit late right now, which I know is hard to tell because my shit's still clean. But that's the level I've always been. All right.
Yeah.
My barber is a great barber. All right. He's not a bougie barber. All right. He's I he charges like 45 a haircut, which is a
Mm-hmm.
pretty healthy price, but that's about what a haircut costs in Chicago. That's
Okay.
kind of what a haircut costs almost a decent haircut costs almost everywhere now. Okay, I can remember still when it was like 10 years ago, it was only $25, and that
Mm-hmm.
was like a normal thing,
Yeah.
right? So I go to a regular barber, regular guy, hi puppy. All right, this guy basically makes what I was making pulling in at the National Archives. Now I've
Oh,
been
really?
making that same salary, right, gross, for about 10 years. I haven't been able to crack it in the corporate world. And
Oh,
this
wow.
guy is doing that money
Yeah.
and he's not sweating for it. He is not marching up every year to performance reviews, wondering like, "Oh my God, is this the year I'm going to get cut?
Yeah. Am
Oh,
I
am I going to get
worthy of being
am I going to
here?
get more than 1.75% this year? No, okay,
Not to
right,
mention, let me just throw in some shade. Not to
yeah,
mention like the corporate
yeah,
politics and
all of
the
it, all of it,
BS
all of it. He
and the
shows up
cube and the control
he
and
shows
the
up to a
yeah.
shop where all those guys are could be friends. I mean, they are friends, but like they could have been friends just outside of work. They just happened to work together. Okay,
Right.
he gets to talk banter with everybody all day. That's part of the job. All right, they play dad rock. They play, either the Andy Griffith Show in the morning when the kids are getting haircuts, or they switch to sports in the afternoon. And by 3:30, 4 o'clock, everybody closes up shop and he goes home. And that's it.
And he's not
Cash
and he's
in
and he's
hand.
not he's not stressing out uh at night on his own personal time worrying about
Nope.
project management stuff
Nope.
and did so
I found
and
out I found out that hair slivers are a thing. You can get slivers from little shavings of hair, I guess.
oh,
They get
okay.
stuck in your fingers. So that's the thing you maybe he's got to worry about or deal with. But that's it.
Yeah. I'll take
And I'm
it.
like, well, that's where I was like, I'm like, I, maybe I can do this. And then when I got doged, then the universe basically made it very clear. Well, we're not hiring you for anything. When I tell you, Rhonda, I stopped finally applying for 10 jobs a day, but I was applying for 10 jobs a day for a solid 5 months straight.
There were
And
10
do you
jobs a
know
day to apply to?
well, they're not, but I have the skills for lots of different types of jobs. So
Mm,
you need me to be a scrum master? I can be a scrum master. You want me to be a project manager? I'm Lean Six Sigma certified. I got you, boo. You need a product manager? I got product management experience. Oh, you need a technical manager? I got you too. Oh, you need someone who could actually script and code? I can do some of that stuff. You need data analysis? I can do that stuff too. Instructional design? I got you, boo. There's any number of
I got
roles in
you,
which I'm
boo.
overly qualified for. All
Yeah.
right. And I got zero,
Yeah.
zero interviews in 5 months' time between February and July. So, no,
It's a hot
this
mess.
market doesn't want me, is not
Yeah.
interested in what I bring to the table. So I'll bring something to the table that people will value, and that's fine.
Well, I got to tell you though, first of all, I respect the mindset for real, and I love it. Um, because despite everything that you've been through, even the personal
I
stuff,
got
the
kids. I
the
gotta survive, and tapping out of life is
well,
not
no,
an
I
option.
mean, I'm not saying tapping
Like,
out, but I mean, I want to say that, and please
giving
pardon.
up is not an option
No,
either.
no, I mean, I'm not suggesting that didn't even cross my mind. That wasn't what I was going to say. But I just want to say that I think that the gusto that you have, the attitude is you know to me impressive. I'm digging it. I like the energy of it. I like the attitude, the gusto, because um not everybody's like that. You do have a choice. You could be salty about it. Like I got my little saying,
Oh,
like,
I'm salty. I'm
well, I
like,
mean, like
don't get me wrong.
on a scale of pretzel to ocean, how salty are you? But I mean, I'm
Oh,
not I'm not trying
I'm
to.
I'm pretty ocean salty,
You're
right?
pretty.
Like, like what you are seeing is the hardened joy that
Yeah,
comes from, I think, you know, anybody who struggles, anybody who starts to deal with struggle, is like the only way you survive is the joy, right? You
yeah,
have to. I got kids, and I gotta feed them, so I gotta figure this out. This is a puzzle I gotta solve,
yeah,
right? And when you start tearing down all the borders that living under capitalism gives you, which is that you can only do these things that you have been, primed to do, and everything else, you're screwed. But we reward the moxie and the bravo of all these other people, right?
yeah.
I got nothing but time, and I have fewer people that I got to deal with in terms of considering what decisions I make and what I have to do. Because once you've been divorced, you don't have a partner you got to keep constantly, reconciling with to figure out that, hey, I'm going to do this radically different thing. You're going to be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's a much harder conversation to then, hey, grown kids that are still, counting on me to be able to provide income, but not necessarily that like I have to provide the roof over their heads. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're gonna be going through some changes. Hope everybody, hope I'm very blessed that my parents are in good health still
Mm-hmm.
and are still with me, and I have a family to fall back on to help me through this change. And that's very much part of my calculus. It's like
Yeah.
I am in a position of privilege in terms of the fact that I still have family, and our relations have not been irreparably harmed over the years of growth and healing.
Yeah.
Right?
Growth
That,
and healing. Yeah.
well, I mean, look, uh, people are being healthy, and at the same time, we're able to stay together as I think families should try
Mm-hmm.
and stay together. When you
Yeah.
can, right? Um, and I'll knock on that wood. But like that would when you start having to do the tally of what are my options, then you're like, well, what do I got in my corner, and what are other things that I can no longer count on, and I
Mm-hmm.
could count on family, and that's a huge
Yeah.
strength. And therefore, it's just like, okay, we can pull a year. We can pull a year of knuckling up and
Yeah.
going through barber school and not really earning any cash whatsoever, and then knowing that the year or two after that it's likely going to be lean because you
Well,
know
that's your come up years
you're
where you have to like
you're
establish
coming up
yourself.
years.
Yeah. Did you consider anything other than barbering, other than the smoked meat, the food truck thing? Were there any
Well,
other
I
ideas
I
that you
looked at
had?
lots of different I looked at lots of different food truck options. I was really glued in on trying to do something like that, even to the
Mm-hmm.
point of like, what if I just do like a coffee service? And even
Mm-hmm.
that was so laborious, and just in terms of the scheduling and the time, and it really started becoming more about like forget the ramp up that it takes to do the thing, whatever the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
what is a thing that I can count on myself doing day in and day out, not hate myself for doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't overtake the rest of my life.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that then it became very, very clear that this was the route, at least for the route for right now. I think the only risk I am factoring in is that my body will break down, and I could have shoulders or elbows or hands or something like that, and that can mess with my ability to do barbering.
Yeah.
And I probably will want to figure out a next backup plan, but for right now, it works.
Yeah. So basically, it was either some kind of a food truck or it was barbering. That was like the main two categories that you were thinking about.
Yeah, if I wasn't going to do any of the 7 or 8 other things I'm already qualified for, yeah.
Oh yeah, we've already established that. Like that boat
Yeah,
floated
no,
away. Like
I thought about other trades. I thought about carpentry, and then a lot of it is just like I don't know that I want to be on my knees at this point in my life all the time,
yeah.
hunched over,
Yeah,
nailing
I got a
floors and stuff like
backache
that.
when you just said that. When you
Right,
just say the
right.
word
So like,
carpentry, I got to go take an ibuprofen now.
I
Like,
was trying to really think through like what can I reasonably be counted on to do that wouldn't look super weird that I'm still doing it at 60, you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
being new, relatively new,
right,
it's one thing when you're a master carpenter at 60, it's another thing when you're barely a journeyman, you know?
right, right. You know, I mean, honestly, you bring up a good point because I have actually been doing some research recently about the trades, the skilled trade
Mm-hmm.
industries, particularly because when you talk about I think that's where you need to look. If if you're concerned about being wiped out by
Mm-hmm.
AI, you better
Mm-hmm.
start looking towards something that you got to do with your hands. Period. And I spent quite a bit of time last weekend deep diving and doing a lot of research around it. And I mean, I knew there was a shortage of skilled tradespeople, but damn, son, I didn't know
Yeah.
how devastatingly short. I mean, it's to the point people are literally calling it an economic threat.
Oh, it is.
But
And
but
you got a bunch of boomers who are telling you, like, oh, you could have caught this in the back of the 80s and they took away all the trade schools. But yeah, okay.
well, I mean, a lot of people are getting ready to age out, getting ready to retire, and then there's just the demand is exploding, and
Oh, it's worse than that. It's way worse than you think. See, people are starting to notice it, which is telling you how bad it is.
yeah, I know.
Because, they're not aging out. They aged out decades ago. The knowledge is dying off and dead,
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
people die off, with this actual
Well,
skills.
well,
And now
yeah,
you have a gap where you are running out of masters. You have some journeymen, and now those journeymen are instantly the masters because there's no masters left.
mm-hmm.
And it's not the same thing. And
Well,
you don't even have a book of apprentices coming in.
and that's the thing because even because of the stigma that was such in place for such a long time around going into the trades, it was looked
Mm-hmm.
down upon. That if you went to tech school or trade school, you were somehow less than, or you weren't intelligent enough. I mean, I read it all.
Mm-hmm.
I read it all. I even read the history of how that all began and how that took in some really nasty cultural
Right.
turns, and then also then and 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 then in the education system they began this heavy tracking and kind of steering low income and mostly minority people towards the trade school because getting a 4-year degree was considered white collar and superior and I mean it's why do humans do this shit to themselves, man? But anyway, I don't want to get off on that tangent, but to the point about
Well, I mean,
trades.
you can't. Well, the reason why the answer to your question is capitalism, and you can't
Yeah,
address the pivot situation without addressing that. Like
yeah,
that's the reason why the pivots happen,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because not because a few people in a room decide, and literally is how this shit works. Still, right?
Hmm,
I'm not. I
hmm.
mean, I'm not even exaggerating. That's literally the fight I was fighting in the standards world through the learning industry. You
Yeah.
know, I, I've I we talk about, you talk about how, how fed up people can get in the learning industry. I did something about it. All
Mm-hmm.
right. I
Mm-hmm.
went into the standards world. I changed the way standards even worked.
Yeah.
And we're still in the
But
situation.
nobody
So no,
cares. That's the thing.
nobody cares.
Nobody gives a rip. And
The
this
biggest fights
conversation
are
of
over the
nobody
smallest things.
caring keeps
The
coming
biggest
up.
fights, the biggest fights have been over the smallest stakes.
Yeah. I just had, I mean,
So,
I was just, I have a friend who's also a change management practitioner, and I was having a conversation with her yesterday, and I was talking to her about, there's a certain project, and the client isn't necessarily very savvy about change management, and it's not their fault because they're not change management people. Duh. Why would they know? That's why they're getting help, right? But the thing is, it's like, okay, well, you need the help, you ask for the help shows up. So don't stand in front of the door and don't let the help in now. Like when the help shows up and we're here to tell you, okay, this is what you got to do. Let's get on with it. So my friend, I think she said to me, I think she was making fun of me, and she said, "Oh, that's so precious." Because I was like, well, we have to do an organizational readiness assessment and da 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 da. And she just looked at me and she's like, nobody cares about that. She was just so like in my face. And I was like, but blah, blah, blah. She's like, no, that's not part of it. She's like, that's not part of the process. Like, oh, yes, it is part of the process. And if me, Poindexter, little miss following the standard, talk about standards. And I was like, well, look, the standard says, and she just laughed at me while she was drinking her whatever the hell she was drinking. And she's like, yeah, I get that. I know. She said, but nobody does that. And I was like, you know what? You sound like your client, man. You sound like your client. Because she's like, she's got a difficult client right now. So I've been hearing about it. And I'm like, man, you sound like your client. Like we're supposed to be on the same team. Like we're supposed to care about this. This is where it begins. It doesn't begin because somebody decided that we're just gonna lop off the first 25% of the process because we don't just happen to give a shit about it. She's like, yeah, okay, but I'm just telling you, nobody does that anymore. And I'm like, well, maybe if they did, they wouldn't have this, and this, and that problem. She's like, yeah, we could sit here and wax poetic about that all day. And I'm like, oh God. I said, you are taking me back to like, stop it. Like,
mm-hmm.
I shifted over to change management heavily and got more into like coaching because it's quite frankly more enjoyable. Okay. I said, and you're throwing me back into my L&D, ISD, nightmarish, traumatic, flashbacks. I don't want to have this conversation right now. I was like, and I met her when she and I both met at a time when we were both ISDs. And she went into change management, and I went, in 15 different directions, started baking cupcakes and doing photography and doing all kinds of stuff. But we have a similar background and a similar path. And she got out of L&D, doesn't want to go back into it. And I was like, you're rubbing me the wrong way right now. And I was like, you're taking me back to when we first met back in 2000, whatever the heck year that was, when we both worked at the same place. And she's like, yeah, I know. I said, this smacks of fill in the blank. I'm not going to name the company name. I said, this smacks of, how we were having nervous breakdowns, and we would have team meetings with our manager, and not only would we be, the manager would be on the call crying with us. Literally, there was a meeting where the manager broke down in tears and cried. That's how bad it was. But that's a result of not caring, not valuing the thing. It's so frustrating when you pour your life and your heart and your soul, and you're good at what you do.
Yep.
You like what you do. You
Yep.
know the value of what you do. You don't need a
Yep.
textbook to tell you the value. You've seen it work. You know it works. And that's
Yep.
why I say I felt like by the time I showed up, I felt like I arrived in time to be the person to clean up the streamers off the floor because the
Mm-hmm.
party has already been had. It already left.
100%. Yeah, I'm done with that shit.
And I got to tell you, I did
Completely
have a
done.
moment where, because there was this woman that was at University of Georgia when I went through that program there, and she approached me. I, Aaron, I didn't even have, I didn't pursue this career. When I was in college, I started off. I wanted to be an architect, like my dad. But of course, I got talked out of that. The girls don't become architects. Blah, blah, blah. I got that BS put into my head, and I got discouraged from being an architect and doing things that girls don't do. That kind of crap. And so then it was like I was kind of told, "Well, just get a business degree." So yeah, I got an associate's in business. Associate of science in business. I did that, and then I was trying to think about, okay, what do I want to get my bachelor's in? And I went from accounting to psychology. I really wasn't sure. And someone approached me because I had taken a particular class, and someone approached, she's like, you'd be really good at blah, 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 blah. And boy, some days I just want to curse that woman. Like, she's the reason I got into, the field. It sounded interesting. I know why I liked it. I know why I took to it because I'm very analytical. I'm very meticulous. I like the details. I like the structure. I like the framework. I like the ingredients of, like, this is why I was drawn to this work. But little did I know that it would just be so devalued, like you're saying. Like, there's nothing in the world that's ever gonna make. I've never found anything that's ever comforted me and made me feel better about that, because it just is what it is, you know.
When you mentioned this, and it got me thinking. Um, I didn't really seek out a career in instructional design at all. To be honest with you, I graduated from undergrad with an elementary
Mm-hmm.
education degree. I was a middle school teacher and a librarian after that for about a year and a half. And I didn't seek that education. I was given an ultimatum by my parents as a Gen X kid who
Mm-hmm.
was like just too young to go to college, but I was told I had to go to college. It wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
And I messed around, and eventually, like, I was told, you're going to be a teacher because that's at least a degree that you can do, and it's true. I mean, I got three generations before me of teachers and teaching in my family, so like
Mm-hmm.
it's in the there is something about that, like where some of that stuff is in the blood. But I will tell you that, like, I found moments of joy. I found moments of achievement, personal satisfaction, but they were always at odds against the system when I was a teacher. And when I was when I was hired in as a school librarian in Walter Public Schools, and I really enjoyed that job for the 1 year I was doing it, and then the principal made me a floating teacher within the school, and she was very, I would say, let's just say that we were at odds. I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
And she one day assigned me a janitor's custodian's duties, and there was a bathroom that was flooded, and I was assigned to go clean it up, and I was like, I did not go through all of this master's degree shit to
Mm-hmm.
literally be sweeping up shit
Oh my
in
gosh.
a school building simply because I did not want to sign off on a budget that looked illegal to me
Ooh.
as part of the right. And the union couldn't help me because I wasn't tenured yet. I was too new. And I was just like, so what am I paying union dues for? Like, what am I like at this point I was just like, at the point of, like, I would rather be a busboy than go to that place one more day.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
when you are at that point in your career where it's just like, especially early, in my career because like I was only 3.5 years out of college, not even 3.5. It was like three in the first quarter, and
Wow.
yeah, I quit. I literally walked out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and never came back to the job. I was just like, I'm fucking out of here.
Dude.
And I took a job as a producer on a website back in '99,
Hmm.
and like 2 weeks later, my first client was the NFL,
Oh,
and
nice.
Everything took off from there. It was a whole different road, and so I've had the confidence of completely shifting gears
Yeah.
before and marching up to the point where my heart is telling me like I would literally rather be doing anything else for anybody else than this. And
You
that is
just,
how I feel. That's how I felt by the end of my time in National Archives with this market and everything about the learning industry. I am so disillusioned with not just the learning industry, but really how society looks at learning now and how little they value it.
yeah.
And honestly, to that end, how little learning industry has actually mattered from
That's
their
a,
own by their own volition. It's not like they didn't have better choices. They didn't want people have not wanted to make them. It's not like XAPI hasn't been an option. It's not like actually asking questions that you could actually back up with data and help to use informed business systems and change management. None of that didn't matter. They just didn't care. They didn't value it enough. Didn't want to do the work. Okay, well, you know what?
yeah.
Um, I will do something that you do value, which is giving you a good haircut. And if I'm the kind of barber that actually understands how business works and that you could talk to for help and feel like you could actually fix something in the middle of the day, but if you just got a half hour to talk it out with somebody who got you,
Hmm.
my time, costing the
Yeah.
chair is the same either way.
So you're the barbering coach too, then. Yeah.
It's kind of how
You
I
know,
figure I'm going to find my niche.
I got to tell you something though. Listening to that story about how you left, before Thanksgiving, didn't come back. You remind me of this guy I used to work with many moons ago. Um, Man, I wish I could remember his name because he was such a cool guy. He and I used to both get to the office at the same time in the morning. We would get there like super early, and
Mm-hmm.
he had so, he had a lot of moxie. Let me tell you, he didn't give a rip, man. And but I'm gonna come to the point to tell you what his secret was. Because we used to chat over coffee because we were the only two people that would be there at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Already up and running, coffee in hand, laptop
Yep.
bin fired up. We were in there early. You know what he told me one day? He said, "You know what?" He said, "I the secret to happiness in my life is that I live way beneath my means." And his wife was working, I think she was working at like CNN or something at the time, and then he had his job. He said that their house was paid off, they had no car payments, and they had 2 years worth of expenses. Like he's like, if I get if both of us lost our jobs today, we could live for 2 years comfortably without working, lifting a finger. And he said his dream was that he wanted to open a bar, even though same thing. It's kind of like you made this point about the things that you're prescribed to do. You have to do these things that you're assigned. And I gotta tell you, I struggled for a while with being all buttoned up and, I have to be all professional, and I have my degrees, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to be da da da, and don't be yourself, and don't don't be too personal. Don't be, you got to be. I mean, I was basically kind of conditioned to
Mm-hmm.
be super corporate, super professional, super buttoned up all the time because I felt like that was what was expected of me. And
Sure.
and it's like you're not allowed to have fun or be a real human being or a real person. But this dude was so cool. I was like, wow, man, that is so intensely cool. So I wanted to say this because if anybody's listening to this, that's got to be a part of the arsenal of surviving this crazy time in this crazy world. You have to do that. You've got to live beneath your means because that's where the golden handcuffs come in. When you're just so stuck
I'll tell
financially
you,
that you just
I'll,
have to,
I will, I will tell you something that I learned only last year. And it's the kind of thing that I really would have thought that I would have learned in high school economics. Um, there is an actual percentage that the U.S. uses to determine and calculate whether a person or a family is cost burdened, and that is they're living beyond their means.
hmm
And one indicator of that, at least, is that your rent or mortgage should not be more than 30% of your take home income.
yeah, well, I
Well,
know
but
that,
like
but I
even
know that.
but like for me knowing that, once I knew that, especially, going through a divorce, having to figure out recalibrate from having my own, not only my own business with a partner and two salaries to support, our
hmm
lifestyle, to I now have my salary. I have no savings for the next year and a half while we arbitrate, the
hmm
separation. Right. That was a really helpful calculation to have in mind as I was looking at having to rent a place for myself, because it
Well,
helped. When's the last time I had to actually budget for just me?
well, that's true, but and the reason why I reacted the way that I did is because holy moly, man, it's like okay, but it just grates on my nerves that I mean, not everybody is making three times their rent. I mean, have you seen rents? I mean, you live in Chicago. I can't
Well,
even
that
imagine what's rents like in Chicago, but I was just
well, I
having
mean, that's
this.
the thing, is that it was very humbling. I started all of a sudden. I'm just like, well, I have a kid, but I can't afford a two-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, and so
Even
that's my whole
even
point,
on
Aaron.
even on my really solid six figure, low six figure, but it was still a six figure salary,
Yeah,
could
see
not
that's what I'm saying. It's
to rent
ridiculous.
more than a one bedroom apartment.
It's
You
it's
know,
it's ridiculous, and it pisses me off because, you know, my I have a
but I was able to sustain it. They were not wrong.
and you were fortunate to have been able to do that, but there are so many people out there who cannot. I mean,
Oh no,
I've just had this conversation with my daughter. My daughter's living in my townhouse. I got a townhouse in
this
Georgia.
is why this is why I'm living with my parents
Yeah.
again.
Well, I got
Like
this
I'm
townhouse.
not winning, right?
Yeah. No, no, I know, but like
I'm just trying not to lose anymore.
yeah, I'm torn because I got this townhouse in Georgia because I thought that I was going to move back to the U.S. and then I ended up getting a contract here in the Netherlands, and I ended up staying, and then I ended up staying longer, and then I just ended up saying, well, I don't even want to go back. But then my daughter needed a place to stay, so I was like, well, go move into my townhouse because I'm clearly not there and ain't coming anytime soon. So she's been staying there, and now the lease is up, and I was just like, you want how much for like, come on, dude, like this, is it really worth all this? And yeah, I've been able to afford to pay for both. I have a home here in the Netherlands, and then I'm paying for that there in Georgia. That doesn't mean that by that standard. No, I'm not. I'm not by that index. I'm cost burdened. Sure, I've known that, and it's not the most financially wonderful thing to do. However, I was able to provide for my daughter in a time that she needed that. And so, as a mom, I'm glad that I was able to do that for her. Okay. If that's what the whole
Mm-hmm.
point was, if that's the whole, woo woo reason why that place came into my life was to ultimately help my daughter, be able to have somewhere to stay because her roommate, like, moved to California, and then she wasn't expecting to have to be moving again, and it just wasn't. It was unexpected. But the thing is that it's just ridiculous because rents and mortgages and interest rates and everything is so ridiculous. Like, how are you ever gonna how's a young person these days gonna actually have a salary and be able to qualify for a mortgage on a decent house? It's not like freaking half a
They're
million
not.
dollars for some
They're
mediocre
not.
ass house.
They're
My
not.
house
Which
that
is
I
what.
sold before I moved here, You know, that dang thing's almost $1 million now. It's ridiculous.
Well,
But
so they're not, which is why I would close this conversation by simply saying you gotta be ready to pivot everything, like
yeah, and
eventually, like
that's where I
like
was going
all
with.
the notion, like I'm not the reason why one of the reasons I'm thinking I decided to become a barber is because when I say I could be a barber anywhere, I could be a barber anywhere. It doesn't have to be the United States, you know.
Yeah, the location independence is super critically important.
It is a really transferable skill to
Yeah.
have in a midlife where all of a sudden not only is the economy uncertain, but the I would say the feasibility of retire whatever kind of retiring means, right? Um, but the idea that I can write out my days in the U.S. seem less plausible than they used to be, and
No, yeah.
that's not even about the politics so much as it's about just the economics and how locked out you become once you're no longer hireable. You know,
Yeah. Well,
um,
that's the other thing too,
and
because to buy a house or even rent an apartment, you have to have a job, and they mean W-2. They don't mean, oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can, yeah, of course you
yes,
can if you're self-employed, but it's far more difficult. There's a lot more scrutiny, and you have to have a much longer track record of how long you've been in business, and they want to see all your your
well,
financials and all
and
that
that's
stuff.
the other and that's the other thing. Like like especially when you are, I would say, mid career, midlife, right?
Hmm.
How hard do I want to work for the box that I sleep in?
Yeah. Yeah, that is when it boils down to it, it really is just a
Do I
box,
want to,
isn't it?
right? So, what kind of box would I rather sleep in? And what do I want outside of that box when I'm not in that box? And where in the balance of needing to afford a box, right? Where can I do that in a way that's going to be, more pleasant for me, right? Because the winters in Chicago suck, right? Like I love Chicago, but winters suck, and they will begin to suck more. And for me to increasingly keep paying more and more and more and have to make more and more to live in places that hurt my
Yeah,
hands and arthritis
it's
more and more,
it's
like
unsustainable. Yeah.
beaches work.
Yeah,
People need haircuts on beaches too.
I love it. Yeah, and I know, and so I wanted to take a moment and ask you, tell me about your vision for your barbering business, because I know we talked about this the other day, but I really was hoping you would share
Sure.
that because I thought it was so cool. And as a matter of fact, when I was talking
Yeah.
to the woman this morning when I was coaching her and she was kind of going through her transition and realizing that she's not sure she really wants to do what she wants to do, I was telling her about you, and I was like, oh, I mean, he's got this vision and it's so cool and da 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 da. So I'm not going to tell the story, but you tell us
Well, sure.
what your vision is
So I,
for your cool rock and roll barber
so
place.
I'm not. I don't want to start out with my own shop. I want to start in a shop in just a good shop with
Yeah,
like great
yeah,
barbers that I can learn from, who I can learn from a lot. Because I truly do believe that the barbering license I get, I earn, is just a license to learn. Like
right.
I'll know how to cut hair, but I won't really know how to cut hair well until like I'm around situated around people who just really know their craft,
Hmm.
and doing that for a while. But when I eventually build up my own book, enough where it becomes annoying to the shop that I'm part of, to have to constantly accommodate my customers and the way I do, right? Because that day will come. I know me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
know me in when you've been in enough workplaces, you just know how you work with other people, and eventually they're gonna be like, he needs the chair over there. Right? I get that, right? I know that's coming, and eventually I'll want to have my own place. And when I do, I want to. I really what I have loved over the last year and a half really focusing on is producing music, making music, doing DJ sets, just kind of exploring my own thing. And over the past decade, I've produced a couple of shows. I've definitely produced conferences and events and stuff like that where music has been a big theme. And I like bringing people together. And I'd like to create, I would like to have a barbershop that's basically situated inside of a music studio. And so
Yeah.
when you come, you come, you get your hair cut. You want to come, you want to hang out and jam. There's a place to jam. You can jam while I'm cutting my hair. If people want to meet and use the space after hours, that's cool. I can rent that out. If people want to jam with me after hours, like we'll rent the space and have me produce or at least be on do the sound engineering. Happy to do that shit. I just would like to create one of the things I've been really happy about in my career is how much I've been able to enable community.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of addicted to that. And I love bringing people together and I love helping to enable that, if not facilitate it. And I just want to be able to have an opportunity. I just want to have an opportunity and create an opportunity to do that wherever I am.
And you know what? I think we definitely need a whole hell of a lot more of that these days, Aaron. And just so,
Yeah.
I think when you told me that, I was like, that sounds like the coolest thing I've heard in a while, man. Like, that is just
Yeah,
sounds like a nice,
I
like,
just want to have a safe. I want to have a safe third space for people to feel like they can hang. You know.
yeah, yeah. That is so, so cool. See, I got my little elements of my little music. Um, I've got to this side of me, which you can't see. I've got my whole producer's
Mm-hmm.
desk over here, and in the other room, I've got my DJ table. I love music, and
Mm-hmm.
I do intend to get to that, and also back into the photography because I got to tell you, the last time you and I spoke, we just had our little chat. I want to thank you. I left that call feeling super inspired that day. Really, just like, damn, what a reminder. It's like I could have had a V8. Like, it's just a reminder that, like, I could have done this with my time. It's like, it's just, this is just so refreshing. I love the
Oh, thanks, Steve.
creativity. I love your energy. I I I respect your saltiness. I get it. But I still say that despite the saltiness, I really like the way that you're handling the situation, Aaron. And
Well,
I
thank you
appreciate
so much.
you sharing your story and spending time with me today, just hashing it out. And, we talked about a lot of different things and sprinkle a little bit of this and a little that, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm like tongue tied. I love the sass, and if I ever get to Chicago, I'm coming to see you. And even if you don't have a food truck, maybe you can hook me up with a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. How about that?
I know of one place. I got you covered.
All right, sounds good. Well, I have one last thing that I like to do before I end this podcast. Um, it's just a little thing that I do. I have a deck of these big talk cards. I don't know if you've seen these
Okay.
before. So I'm going to shuffle this deck and I'm going to ask you some
Okay.
rando question. It's just a
All
little
right.
closing thing that I do. All right. So, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Oh, here's a good one. What is a common misconception that people may have about you?
Um. I really don't know. I feel like I'm pretty transparent, but I guess if you were a total stranger, you might not be aware that I'm down.
That you're down?
I'm
Uh,
down.
yeah. You know what? I will tell you. I will share with you as someone who interviewed with you.
Yeah.
No, and that's I want to say it's been a pleasure to get to know you more. Um, because, and again, we met in that buttoned up scenario. Remember when I applied for
Mhm.
hell? What the hell job was it even anymore? I know what company it was. I don't name companies on here, but we know where we met. But I left that interview feeling like, oh yeah, he's like super scholarly, just like me. He's like I knew that we had sparked on the whole learning and development thing. I knew we like
Yeah.
fireworks went off when we were talking about work stuff. So I was left feeling like this guy's super smart. He appreciates, he values. Like I was feeling like I had met my match as far as like from a professional sense. But no, dude, I didn't know you were so freaking cool till you invited me to the
Yeah.
Discord channel. You're
Yeah.
right.
Most people look at me. I think my girlfriend tells me I have a certain phenotype, and you know, I guess I don't give off the vibes of at I don't at a distance, at first blush give off the vibes of, oh, here's somebody who's like he's down, you know,
No,
like
I have to agree with you. I'm glad I asked I'm glad you got that question because I will confirm. No, you did not give that off. But again, I think that was because we were in that sterile ass environment.
well, I also try, I'm not trying to attract all. I'm not trying to keep, having a, vacancy available kind of sign up, I don't want to. I've been bruised. I've been hurt before. I don't want to be down just for anybody.
Yeah. I don't want to be down. I love that. I'm stealing. I don't want to be down just for anybody. I
No,
love that.
but that's why you got to keep that. You got to keep. You got to keep the mystery a little bit.
Well, I knew there was some special sauce going on when I got on the
You got to be
disc
giving the special sauce
Discord.
away.
Oh man, what a great
McDonald's
way
doesn't put it in the grocery store.
This is the real deal, man. I'm just making this for anybody. Right. Oh man, what a
You
what
can
a
only get this right here.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so awesome. Thanks for being your real, true, authentic self. And again, every time I talk to you, I get to know you even more, and I just really, genuinely enjoy it so much. So,
Well, thank
um,
you, Rhonda. Thanks
I've
for having us.
been,
It's been lovely to catch up with you.
yeah, you too. We'll definitely be speaking again. We're going to keep in touch for sure. I am super interested to know how things are going to be going with barber school and everything else. I mean, the music. Thanks for following me on SoundCloud, my little Wolf Tracks thing. that's my little that's my little DJ thing, my little project. So I'm out there. I'm trying to come out of my little shell too. I'm trying to be down.
Well, if I could put in a plug, I guess all the pivoters out there, all you pivoting wolves, can follow along my mid career journey, my midlife mid career journey into barbering at cut.buzz.
Yeah, and
There you
actually,
go.
I'm glad that you said that because I was going to ask you to please send me your contact information, whatever you want me to add to the description on this video. I will put that in there so people can get in touch with you there. Great newsletter.
Okay.
I've been enjoying it. Send me your SoundCloud. Send me your newsletter. All of that. Give me all the goods so I can drop it down in the description and people can follow you. So
Everything's at cut.buzz. So,
okay, that's awesome. All right, well, Aaron, on that note, I bid you adieu. May you go and
thanks,
have a
Rhonda.
happy down Friday. And
Mhm.
thanks again. And I will talk to you soon, okay?
Take care.
All right, take care, Aaron. Bye bye.